July 19, 2022 marked the 53rd anniversary of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's nationalization of bank. Hello and welcome to the In Focus series section of Drishti IAS. I am Aisha Singh, and in today's video we will be discussing about bank nationalization, whether a masterstroke or a blunder. So let's see what all we will be studying in today's video. First, we will be looking at what is the news, then what is bank nationalization and nationalized banks. What are the factors which led to the nationalization of bank, then the benefits of bank nationalization, and what are the negative implications of nationalization of bank. In the end, we will be looking into a prelims MCQ and a mains practice question. This topic is of relevance from General Studies Paper 3 Economy, Banking Sector. In prelims, you might not be able to see many questions from nationalization of banks, but this topic is very important from mains perspective. After around every 1 or 2 years, you will be able to find a question on nationalization of bank, and all these aspects, be the factors, benefits, negative implications, all these are important from the mains perspective and will really help you in mains answer writing. So let's get started and see what is the news. So this news has been taken from Explain Speaking section of Indian Express, and it says bank nationalization, blunder or masterstroke. So what all we will need to study in this, first is what is bank nationalization, why the banks are called nationalized banks, and whether it has become a masterstroke or we have really benefited from bank nationalization or it has been a negative impact of it. So first let's see that what is the news. See, July 19 marked the 53rd anniversary of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's. One of the most famous step taken by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was nationalization of 14 banks, popularly known as bank nationalization. And nowadays, if you will see that instead of public sector banks, the government is focusing more on privatizing the banks. So at the time of Indira Gandhi, the nationalization of bank took place, while at the present time there is a trend of privatization of banks. So there is a debate that which one is better. And it is also expected that the government will bring legislative changes in the current session of the parliament to enable it to privatize public sector banks. And one of the statements given by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is, other than the IDBI bank, we propose to take up the privatization of 2 public sector banks and 1 general insurance company in the year 2021 and 2022. So by these statements you can also see that privatization of banks are being talked about. Now let's first see that what is bank nationalization. See, during the time of 1960s and 1970s, what was happening, that India was suffering economically very badly. So it has been seen that in the banking sector there were many private banks which were taking place or which were in place. So the bank thought that instead of many private banks, the private monopoly should not be there and all the banks should come under the government, and the government became the owner of the banks. So what happened is, bank nationalization is when government took over the ownership. The important word is ownership. When the government took over the ownership of certain private banks, and in 1969 it was the 14 banks which got nationalized in one go. So in 1955, how it all started was, in 1955 India nationalized the Imperial Bank of India, and after that it formed the State Bank of India, popularly known as the SBI, the biggest bank of India. And SBI act as the principal agent of the RBI, and it was responsible for handling the banking transactions of the union and the state government all over the country. SBI was also formed. And what happened that under bank nationalization, the banking companies acquisition and transfer of undertakings ordinance was passed in 1969, and after this ordinance got passed, the banks nationalization took place of 14 banks. So after which ordinance the nationalization of bank took place? It was the Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertaking Ordinance 1969. After that 14 banks got nationalized, and it is not that only the 14 banks got nationalized. Then after 1969, the second phase of nationalization of banks also took place, and 6 more banks in 1980 got nationalized. So in total, in first phase it was 14, in second phase it was 6. So in total there were 20 banks which got nationalized, and the 20 banks which became the government became owner of it has brought around 80% of the banking segment in India under the government ownership. So through the nationalization of bank, after the first and the second phase of nationalization, through which around 20 banks became nationalized, around 80% of the banking sector of India was under the government ownership. And we all know that in India, whenever the word government comes, then there is credibility and authenticity increases. So after the nationalization of banks took place, the people's confidence in bank increased and Indian economy started to perform better. So we will be looking into this. See, first let's see who all are the banks which got nationalized. In 1969, these are the 14 banks which became part of which became nationalized was like Allahabad Bank, Bank of Baroda, Maharashtra Bank, Central Bank of India, Canara Bank, Dena Bank. And in 1986, more banks became nationalized like Punjab and Sindh Bank, Vijaya Bank, Oriental Bank of India, Cooperate Bank, Andhra Bank, and New Bank of India. So these are the 20 banks which got nationalized in 1969 and 1980. So what are the factors which led to nationalization of banks? What are the factors that pushed the government to go for nationalization of banks? Say after independence, that is after the 1947 India, after the British left, then the governance of India was left in the hands of the Indians, and we were suffering because we were not really exposed to governing the whole country. And economically also we were not ready to like take steps whichever is needed to make the economy perform better. So after independence, government of India adopted planned economic development for the country. Whenever you read newspaper, you must be reading this word a lot, that is planned economic development. This is in place many a times. So after the independence, the government of India adopted planned economic development for the country, and under the planned economic development, nationalization of bank was one of the steps that they thought they will be taking. Then 2 wars that India fought, first with China in 1962 and another with Pakistan in 1965, put immense pressure on the public finances. Because war is bad for the economy, it takes a lot from one country. Then there were many years of droughts also, which led to food shortages. Food shortage was one of the biggest reason, that because of which the Green Revolution also came into place. And the decade of 1960s and 70s was famous for not for the economic growth but for the rapid increase in population of India. The population of India was increasing rapidly, but the economic growth was not that fast. So there was stagnation which took place, and agriculture also needed capital infusion. So we needed bank which could invest in the agriculture, while the private sector banks would never do that. They would prefer investing in industries rather than agriculture. So we needed banks which can work towards the welfare of the economy or the welfare of the weaker section. So these are few of the factors which led to the nationalization of bank. And apart from these, then social welfare, as I just said, that we are a agriculture driven economy. So and there the poverty in India was very high when it comes to 1960s and 70s, because the population was increasing very rapidly while there were people did not had jobs. So poverty was very high during those times and drought took place. We needed social welfare and we needed banks which could lend for social welfare. Then controlling private monopolies in a country which was already suffering economically. The private sector monopoly was there in banks. So government thought of controlling that private monopoly and bringing things under the government ownership. Then expansion of banking to rural areas. Private sector banks would never go to rural areas, because going to rural areas during 1960s, 70s and 80s would not be profitable for them. Then reducing regional imbalance. This is an important word. Reducing regional imbalance to curb the urban-rural divide. Then priority sector lending is important. Lending to the agriculture, the marginal and small farmers, the MSMEs is of utmost importance in our country. Then mobilization of savings. What people earlier used to do was they used to keep their money in their own houses and was not going to deposit into the banks. So the economy was not moving or was not circulating properly. So when the government ownership of banks took place, it increased people's confidence into the bank, so that people would go and deposit their savings in the bank, which will lead to the circulation of money in the economy. So this is a full cycle how it moves, that people would go and deposit into banks, banks would lend that money to the needy people, and that money will revolve in the economy. So next we will be looking into what has been the benefits of the nationalization of banks for India. So let's see few of the facts that I will be saying here. You do not need to actually remember the digits or the facts exactly. What you need to see that what has been the trend over the years. But I will be telling you few of the facts. You focus on the trends. Benefits of nationalization is rural bank branches has increased tenfold. You need to focus on the word tenfold. So rural bank branches increased tenfold from about 1443 in 1969. So when the nationalization of bank took place, after that the rural bank branches increased around tenfold to 15,115 in 1980. Then there was twofold increase in urban and semi-urban areas. Credit to rural areas increased from rupees 115 crore to 3,000 crore. There was a 20-fold increase when it comes to credit to rural areas. Then deposit in rural areas increased around 20-fold, that is from 306 crore to 5939. See, don't remember the words. What you need to remember is that rural bank branches increased, to then credit to rural areas increased, deposit in rural areas also increased. See, these are the words that you need to write in your mains answer writing whenever you will be writing on the topic that benefit of what are the benefits of the nationalization of banks for India. Then between 1969 and 1980, credit to agriculture expanded 40-fold. 40-fold it increased. Then public deposits in the bank have increased, that leaving it completely to the private sector would have been very, very dangerous for our economy. Then Indian banking system has reached even to the remotest corner of the country, as we have just seen that even the rural areas, the banking expansion increased. There was financial inclusion which was taking place. Then banking under government ownership gave the public immense confidence. This is the major word and the major point. When the banking sector came under the government ownership, it increased the credibility, the authenticity of the banking sector within the Indian population. It gave people the confidence that yes, they are our banks. We can go and deposit our money to them and our money will be safe. So this is one of the most important point, as the soft power really has an impact over the population. Now let's see this. See this number of beneficiaries at rural, semi-urban, central bank branches. Then this is number of beneficiaries at urban, metro, center bank branches. Number of rural, urban, female beneficiaries. Number of total beneficiaries. So this is the proportion contribution by public sector banks. This is second is by regional rural banks, and third is by private sector banks. So see, if the nationalization would not have taken place and the banking sector would have remained with the private sector, then see the contribution of private sector in rural and semi-urban central bank branches. It is 0.70. Then urban, metro, center bank branches 0.60, while they are in no comparison with the public sector bank and the regional rural banks. Number of rural urban female beneficiaries 0.71. It is not even 1% in any of these respect. Number of total beneficiaries 1.30. So this is the major point, that private sector core work is about profitability, to look for profit. This is the reason that why private sector could not have worked well at that point of time, that is the 1960s and the 70s, while the public sector bank was the need of the hour of India. Now let's talk about few of the negative implications of the nationalization of bank. First is, it has been said that because of the nationalization of bank, the NPA crisis. And what is NPA? NPA is the non-performing asset which is not coming back to the bank. The NPA has increased because of the nationalization of bank, as the core subject of the bank is not profitability. So the NPA crisis since 2012 has caused due to the credit bubble that grew under the political support due to nationalization of bank. And also nationalization of bank has led to an interest rate structure that is very complex. See, nowadays bank do not have one interest rate structure. It has many kind of interest rates or many other things. So it is becoming difficult for the layman to understand, or the person who's going to bank for the first time might get confused. Then nationalization of bank has also led to lesser competition between the public sector and the private sector banks. As in today's time, it is said that the private sector banks are performing way better than the public sector bank, and the private sector bank also has lesser NPA than the public sector bank, and they are able to get the money back on time. Then liberal credit policy is necessary for providing financial support to the weaker section, but it may prove harmful for the stability of the banking system, because if profitability will not be the core subject of the banking, then the liberal nature of the bank might prove harmful for the stability of the banking sector. So now let's see the review governance of boards of banks in India. What they said in their report was that the public sector banks' financial position is fragile, the boards of the public sector banks is disempowered, and the selection process for director is increasingly compromised, and board governance is weak, and it focused less on factors such as profitability. This was what the review governance of boards of banks in India said, that it is disempowered, fragile, weak, less on profitability. The process is compromised. And see, one of the important facts is that you need to really focus on is, according to Economic Survey 2020, listen carefully, every rupee of taxpayer money invested in public sector bank is the keyword, fetches a market value of just 71 paise. So every rupee of taxpayer money invested in public sector bank fetches a market value of just 71 paise, while on the other hand, every rupee of taxpayer money invested in private sector bank fetches a market value of rupees 3.70. So see the difference between the private and the public sector. The public sector is fetching 71 paise value, while the private sector is fetching rupees 3.70. So there is more than threefold difference is there, and this is called market to book ratio. The term used for this concept is market to book ratio. Now let's see what this prelims MCQ, that who was the Prime Minister of India when banking nationalization was done in 1969. Option 1 is Indira Gandhi, second Rajiv Gandhi, third Jawaharlal Nehru, D Narasimha Rao. You people need to tell me the correct answer in the comment section. I think this you will be able to solve, as we discussed so many times in the video. Last, let's take a look at a mains practice question, and the question says, the nationalization of bank in 1969 has done more harm than good to the Indian economy. Comment. This is a 10-marker question, so the command in this is, over what you need to comment. First, you need to write about the nationalization of banks, then write how the nationalization of bank has done good for the Indian economy, and what the nationalization of bank has done harm for the Indian economy, and in the end write a conclusion of it. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading and keep writing.